The Recruiter, the Observer, and the Decider, the Woman's Knowledge of Darkness and Heart of Darkness. Joseph Conrad immerses readers into the darkness during the scramble of Africa through the narration of protagonist Marlowe. Throughout the novel, the theme of darkness is prominent in many places and goes without a clear explanation of what it entails. But who does really know what the darkness is? In Heart of Darkness, the two knitting women and the intended, who are symbols of Greek mythological figures, are aware that the darkness is the death of innocence that happens after a man enters the Congo. Joseph Conrad uses Greek mythology allusions to the Moray sisters to further enhance his female characters and the knowledge and power they have over Marlowe and other men. As Marlowe says, "It's queer how out of touch with truth women are. They live in a world of their own, and there has never been anything like it, and never can be." Marlowe comments that women live in their own world and are out of touch, but the men seem to be out of touch when traveling into Africa with lack of interest in the consequences of the darkness. The Moray sisters were the three goddesses of fate who personified the inescapable destiny of man. Two of the three fates, the knitting ladies, spin the life thread of each human being. The third fate, the intended, cuts the thread when the time comes for the man to die. The fates, being immortals, have foresight and thus can see every man's fate. The three women addressed in this video know what lies ahead for Marlowe and the most common outcome after being exposed to the darkness: literal death or the death of his innocence. The young knitting women was the beginning stage of understanding Marlowe's fate. The knitting woman was the first to address Marlowe and was walking back and forth introducing members of the company to one another. Marlowe notices the ominous feelings in the atmosphere and feels as though he is being led into some conspiracy and was glad to get out. Marlowe's feelings of doubt continue throughout the novel, but he never seems to follow his intuition. Marlowe is confused and uneasy about the people he is surrounded with, but the women are uneasy because they are witnessing yet another man be seduced into the business of misery. The second older knitting woman was the second stage of Marlowe's fate. The older woman sat in her chair. She seemed to know all about them and about Marlowe too. We as readers don't see any dialogue from the second knitting woman because she is observing everyone and every action to report the differences before and after entering the Congo. Marlowe notes against his uncomfortable feelings when around them, saying that the swift and indifferent placidity of her look troubled me. These looks are coming from her knowledge of what is to come for these men once they sign their agreements with the company. They shall leave as ambitious men and come back as the savages after tearing up a country that is home to so many. Marlowe thinks to himself that these two women are guarding the door of darkness. The two knitting women are not small characters in this novel. They have some of the only insight on what the darkness is that Conrad alludes to. The men have a hard time seeing the dangers that lie ahead because of the prophet stories they're seduced with. The knitters sit in front of the building day after day as men enter and never return the same. They know of the atrocities that come along with colonization practices such as settlement, plunder, negotiation, warfare, genocide, and enslavement. They sit outside the doors of darkness, and when a man enters, his fate falls into the hands of three women. The quietness and uncomfortable feelings they give to others is a notion that they are aware of what is behind the doors of the company and how dangerously evil and addicting it can be. The third and final Moray sister, Atropos, or the intended, is the final step in a man's fate. The intended was not very young, but noted to have a mature stature. Marlowe is taken over with a panicking sensation when in her presence and asks himself why he is there, though he had blundered into a place of cruel and absurd mysteries not fit for a human to behold. The intended is the decision maker on a man's fate, depending on his actions and growing knowledge. It's interesting that Marlowe has chosen to live by the third fate, but her fiancé Kurtz does not live to the end of the novel. Why is this? Because Kurtz was so involved in the dark elements of the Congo and lost his sense of morality, the three fates decided in cutting his thread of life. Yet Marlowe, at the end of the novel, talks to the intended and shows acknowledgement of the cruelties in Africa, thus saving his life at the moment. He lies to the intended about Kurtz's last words because it would have been too dark altogether. This moment of realization of the horrendous actions played out in Kurtz's life show that Marlowe is capable of separating himself from these acts and seeing the detriment the company has caused in Africa. The deepest parts of the darkness are seen as a man travels farther away from his moral integrity. To put blinders onto the heinous acts happening in Africa is to lose to the darkness and to the knowing female characters.